How's everyone doing tonight? We will call the 8th regular meeting of the Board of Directors of School Administrative District Number 52 to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Mr. Ricker.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Our first order of business is to act on the minutes from our 7th regular meeting, which was on November 30th. Does anyone have any comments or feedback on the minutes? Seeing none, they are approved by unanimous consent. I do not have a report for you tonight, so that is a quick one. And we'll move right into public comment. Just to reiterate here, our board meetings are conducted for the purpose of carrying out the official business of our schools. It's important to note that meetings of the board are open to the public, however, they are not public forums. At each full meeting of the board, time is allocated to provide opportunities for citizens and employees to express opinions and concerns related to the matters under consideration by the board. These comments shall be within the guidelines set forth in policy BEDH, public participation in board meetings. Copies of the policy are available on the district's website. I'd like to highlight the following. The chair is responsible for recognizing all speakers. We ask that speakers identify themselves by sharing their name and town of residence. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to express their views. Speakers should direct all comments to the board, specifically the board chair. This is an opportunity for the board to listen to the opinions of the public that relate to school and education matters. It's not intended to be a conversation or a debate of issues. We know that school-related issues can be emotional, but we ask that civility is maintained. We will not permit profanity, gossip, defamatory comments, shouting at one another, or comments that disparage or attack individuals or groups. The board is faced with many important issues, and for the sake of efficiency, the board discourages duplication or repetition of comments. The board will not permit complaints or allegations against staff members. We certainly care about these concerns, but they are personnel matters, which the board is not permitted to hear in public. If there are complaints against staff, these will be handled appropriately through our complaint policy, KE. Just to reiterate, this is a highlight of key points. The complete policy, BEDH, is on the website, and please refer to that for additional information. With that, do we have anyone that would like to speak? Mr. Childs.
Mr. Childs, please. So, I sent in my recommendation for the IJJ policy. I think I sent it to all of you, including the policy committee. IJJ will have the same standards of care, protections, and prohibitions as any and all other policies in MSAD52 handbook. I think that would be an easy one-liner. I'm not trying to say devoted all to that, but I mean that's kind of cut and dry. I think that's something that would be easy to put in there. I would hope, for some parental feedback. And I don't know if anybody would disagree with something like that. I know you won't share it now, but and as far as the book challenge, the policy on that, I think it's a conflict of interest how that is done. So I really hope that maybe you look into that. Maybe like a couple people from each town, they could get picked to be on that and then come up. Something to think about. I think this is a chance for the board to do something good for this school. Now that you guys don't already, you devote your time just as much as anybody else. And I do appreciate that, no matter how that may look. But it's a chance for people to do something good, to show a little, something for the parents. Maybe even my little one-liner in there, would show a little, support for the community. I don't think it's too much to ask. Something to think about. And like I said, I do appreciate what you guys all do, and I hope you have a nice Christmas.
Thank you. Is there anyone else interested to speak? Seeing none, we shall move on to communications. Item 5.1.1, acceptance of a donation to Lead Central School from the Hannaford Helps School Program in the amount of $270. Thank you to Hannaford Helps. An acceptance of grant awarded to Green Central School from the Literacy Fund at the Maine Community Foundation in the amount of $1,000. Thank you, Maine Community Foundation. Is there any announcement or communications from the superintendent?
Yes, just one this time. A couple weeks ago, I announced that Kevin Boubier was moving from bus driver to maintenance worker. And he has missed being a bus driver, so he's moving back to transportation to be a bus driver. And we've got 3 new subs. And that's it.
Okay. Any questions on those communications from anyone? All right. Adjustments to the agenda. There's one written right here for us, which is item 10.10. You see at the end, consideration and approval of Finance Committee recommended September operating and expenditure reports. We're going to move that ahead of our executive sessions. So we'll be moving that up to item 10.4 or before 10.4. So maybe we'll call it 10.3.5 kind of. And the other piece is items 10.8 and 10.9 are not going to be needed tonight, so we can scratch one of those executive sessions off of the list. Anything further, Carrie?
Yes, we're going to remove one of the job descriptions.
Oh, correct.
The Dean of Students at the high school. We found a couple mistakes, so we're just going to pull it and bring it back next time. It was a
Correct.
revision and we
So
missed a couple things.
That is part of the consent agenda, so
Yeah.
we're scratching 8.1.2
Yep.
from the consent agenda. That'll come back to us later. All right, so moving on to committee reports. Finance Committee, Ms. Barris.
We will be meeting, sorry, that was really funny. To me, I didn't think you ever called me Mrs. Barris. I wasn't expecting that. Sorry, caught me off guard. And I've been married for how many years now? Next meeting is scheduled January 11th at 5:30.
I can call you Ms. Walker next time.
It's fine. Oh, God. Okay.
All right, so moving on to the Plant Transportation Building Committee, Mr. Ricker.
We're just going to keep with it, right?
We had a fairly in-depth conversation. Most of it was based around the wastewater treatment plant. Oh, this is gonna kill me. Wastewater treatment plant we have suggested and encouraged that we're gonna continue moving forward with the UV process just to make sure that we can get it done in as timely fashion as possible. But at the same time, the committee kind of feels that a subsurface system will be the best bet if we can make it work. So we're continuing looking other potential land options that have not been currently evaluated. One of the main aspects that wasn't discussed a lot but strongly agreed to is that we are going to try to start holding ourselves as well as the consulting group to a fairly strict time frame. Though we haven't decided on the time frame, all we know is that it's going to be a strict one.
And we're going to hold to it.
And we're going to hold to it. But we'll redebate that once we decide what it is. So, that took up the majority of our time. Then we talked about the water testing at TPS, where we've had a couple bumps, but everything seems to be in good shape at this time, where we do have to do some continuous flushing to keep it so, especially when we don't have school, which is a lot more time consuming than most of you would think. To go through the whole procedure, and that there could be, as you will hear numerous times over the next month or two, a potential financial cost coming in the future to deal with potential tanks or something. So that is just one of the many potential costs coming into the future, just to be wary of. Then we spent a little bit of time in the transportation department, which, contrary to what it normally was, is running fairly well and everything's going good. We are donating, the district is donating a bus to the fire department. We assume that it's a parts bus. No, I'm kidding. Yes, we are donating a junked out parts bus to the fire department, we assume to burn. Who knows, I'm sure it's all for training. And then we did have some discussion. Again, be aware, be ready that there is, for those of you who've been around a while, bus parking is an issue in this district. Where to put them? So That is a continuing issue that we will have to evaluate in further detail as the years come on. And when we have that golden pot of money, we have some ideas. That, speaking of the golden pot of money, our final discussion was the turf field at the high school, where there is hopes that between some grants and community members, that at some point in the next 40 or 50 years, a turf field will be put in. So that is, we gave some concerns, some suggestions, and some direction to the people who are working with it, and we're open, and hopefully they can make it happen in a sooner time frame, but we'll see. That, regardless, that aspect for the football, one of the things that came out of the discussion is that if it happens, we're definitely looking to accept it as a football, doing multi-sports other than football. Football, softball, field hockey, include more fields, so that more of the student population can enjoy it if it does ever come to fruition. So, but again, that is a dreaming session. So, there you go, that's BTB.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Better than the actual meeting.
So, the Tri-Town Education Association support staff negotiations, Jessica.
Oh, I think you skipped somebody.
Did I? Oh, Jamie? I did not mean to.
Do you not
skip
feel
you.
loved right now?
Yes, Mrs. Johnson. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We didn't meet tonight. Our next meeting's January 11th. And
Slacker.
you'll notice that our policies that we did last time aren't on this agenda, and that's just because we were so efficient with our time. We got so many policies out that we just didn't have time to put all the revisions into them and get them out to you guys today. So those will fall on a later agenda, but they're in the works. So nothing on today's agenda from us.
Great. So, now, Ms. Nick.
Yes, the Tri-Town Teacher Association, or Education Association, we met, ESP. We have slowed down our meetings intentionally so that instead of meeting weekly, we're meeting bi-weekly, so that we are having time in between to meet as a group and do all of our due diligence and research that's necessary to be good negotiators. But they are going well overall.
Very good. We do not have a student representative tonight, but we do have some administrators here, and we will start with the first administrator report from Lead Central School Principal, Ms. Bartash.
So we recently took some time to debrief our, lockout in school, and took some time to debrief that process and clarify the language around that to make sure everybody's knows what they're supposed to do in different places, and we all have the same language, lockout versus locked in, and clarifying that so the staff has that information in that kind of situation. We're also, our school was designated a tier 3 school by the state, that we weren't meeting what we needed to be meeting, and this was based on 21-22 data. So, with help of Teresa, looked at our Title I structure and how we were pulling students to be met, to have their needs met. So we're restructuring that a little bit, where we're taking and looking directly at the data, and having them do pull-up service and kind of target those needs that those students have in the cycle so that we can move them along. And also have the data should they need to go on to a special referral. Continuing our restorative practices with students and staff, and those seem to be going well. Some staff members have chosen that as their goal to learn about. It's been helping some students kind of identify what maybe their actions are and how others might feel and how they can repair that as opposed to a punitive. And we are starting to form some committees to start our going to have some more meaningful assemblies, not just to have an assembly for an assembly. We have our first one coming up. We have a new school chant that they're going to introduce. I don't have it, so it was really cool. I'll have a creative side. We're going to teach assembly behavior expectations, so instead of just putting them in there, we're going to show them what the expectations are going forward. I And then we're going to have a relay activity where I and a couple of other teachers will be dressed by students putting on all of our snow gear. Run down with their boots, put my boots on, should be interesting. That's it, thanks.
Wonderful. Just a quick question, just general, the lockout, and, I mean, I imagine that's a lesson that probably all the schools could take from that, right? I mean, is that, as opposed to just Leeds Central, I imagine that communication issue might be district-wide type of?
I think in particular at Leeds with the changeover in principal mid-year. I think that's a piece of it, and I know that the previous principal, in the last week that she was there, went over the emergency plan, but then the transition happened, so I don't
Okay.
think there was enough of that piece. But certainly, all the schools do look at that pretty regularly, so.
Wonderful.
Everybody was doing kind of what they were supposed to. Some were actually being more secure than they needed to be. Like one classroom thought that they could hold the shades and have everybody down.
Mm.
It was more questions like, who do we report the attendance to? So we pick up quick attendance, and there was questions around that.
Sure.
And it was actually, I was at the staff meeting when they first processed it, so I was able to get some feedback around communication, because I worked with Shannon around the communication with families, so it was a helpful discussion in terms of helping me on that, on my end.
Okay. What?
Is it just a change in terminology, or are they two different things?
I don't know that it's not different, I just don't think they had time. I think she introduced it on the same day Carrie came to tell them I was coming.
Sorry, I wasn't clear. I mean, is like a lock-in procedure the same as a lock-out? It's just,
They're different. So with the lockout that we had, we needed to make sure that all of our that everybody was inside, that all of our exterior doors were locked, and
Mhm.
students were still allowed to move about the building, but nobody in, nobody out.
gotcha.
And Officer Han was there.
Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, it was a community emergency, so it wasn't anything that had to do with the school, but the police notified us that there was a potential threat elsewhere.
Tyler was really supportive.
Yeah, he was great.
I hadn't heard that term before, so thank you.
Great, and hopefully the chant has something about fly, Eagles, fly, or something. We'll see.
But we have respect to.
Right. No? Oh.
Oh, well, you've
Right.
missed your calling,
Right,
Joe.
right, right. Well, I mean, it's the Philadelphia Eagles, I just took it. Yeah, anyway. Well, we can move on to Turner Primary School Principal, Ms. Fuller.
Good evening. So again, I give you small data, my apologies. The overall referrals, actually is looking pretty good. November was a little bit, we had a peak, but considering we're moving into the holiday season, it's doing okay. Let's see, and the triangle is just a report to show, the students who are meeting expectations is the larger part of the triangle, and then we have a little yellow and red, and those is 11% of the student body that need additional supports around behavior. So tier 2 usually has what we call check and check out, where students have, on a chart, and they get feedback throughout the day about that all set. And we have, hired some new techs. And we just, set up another interview for next week for Ed Tech 3. With our autism support program, so I'm very excited that we're filling our positions. And, speaking of assemblies, we are having a special movie tomorrow. We're having K to two kiddos, in the gym. We received, plastic dollars for a book fair, and so we're enough to buy a big blow-up screen. So we're gonna show some holiday cartoons with the kids as a reward for doing such a good job with their behavior overall. And then listed are some of our fun days that we're gonna have next week.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? from the board? Thank you very much. And
Jana had a
that's-
conflict with tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but that's her report. This is updated from the one that got emailed to you, just so you know. She was hoping to add the second column of data, so that
Yep.
happened today when she and I were meeting. So I just slid it in there from, different from the one that you received.
Okay. Well, it's too bad.
Yep.
Ms. Mead's going to be here.
Yep.
We'll move on to our assistant superintendent report. Ms. Gills.
Can I give a report? Because in here it says I'm not going to.
Well, it's interesting. It says 10.1. I don't know, are you going to just give it in your presentation?
I have a surprise, though.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
about curriculum.
All right, all right.
And I didn't even write it, so it'll be unscripted.
Look out.
So I wanted to provide just an update on our curriculum work. At the high school, teams have been working during their network meetings on curriculum. At the middle school, content leaders, the new content leaders have been providing work along with the instructional coach during the content team meetings. And at the elementary school, the grade level leaders had a half a release day, and we went later into the afternoon, and they worked on entering the science and social studies curriculum that has been done. A plot twist is that the state recently has provided us with draft science and social studies standards because of their review cycle. So when those are finalized, we'll have to go back and look at our science and social studies. So the timing's off slightly, but we're gonna make it work. And a survey will be going out to the curriculum leadership team, which is all the administrators, all the principals, the instructional coaches, and the content leaders, network leaders, and grade level leaders as to our next steps. And we have 2 training sessions still available to us to train with the Atlas folks. So that's my update on curriculum.
Thank you. Moving, any questions there?
So I just have a quick one.
Yeah,
So you
go
are
ahead.
employing the whole Atlas
Yes,
program?
yes.
And that's,
We are, everybody's at different stages with the inputting, and I expect that we'll have more time this summer, as well as the 2 professional days at the end of the calendar, that we can really do some concentrated work. But we're trying to eke out as much time as we can to do that. And we have January 22nd as the workshop day as well, so we've got some plans for that.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, moving on to the superintendent's report. Ms. Med.
Yes. So when we did the food service state review that came in a couple weeks ago, I think I reported on that. We did very, very well. But we need to have in the board minutes that we have conducted our local wellness policy triennial assessment in accordance with USDA policy, and that was conducted on June 29th, 2023 by Teresa. Do you remember doing it? Yes. So it was something that was pointed out that we needed to make sure the board was aware that we had done that, so consider yourselves aware.
Okay.
Sorry, I kept that a secret from everyone.
Right, like that was a big deal, and you buried the lead there. Student-led conferences, I just wanted to report out on participation because it was awesome. The high school was at 91%, and that's great for high schools. The middle school, 95%, Turner Elementary, 94%, Turner Primary, 97%, and that's really awesome, given that we had to send them home on the half-day because of the gas smell. So those teachers worked really hard to recover that, so a huge thank you to them.
Yeah, I wanna give them credit.
Yeah.
It was a lot of finagling,
Yeah,
and they kept pursuing to make sure that they met with as many families, so
yep, yep.
they deserve a shout out.
Yeah, no, that was not, it was, yeah, an unexpected thing. At Green, it was 95%, and at Leeds was 85%. So we had a great turnout, very excited about that. Everybody worked really hard. Yesterday, the Western Maine Superintendents Association, which we are part of, all the superintendents in our region, we held a legislative breakfast with the representatives from our region. So Jeff Timberlake and Josh Morris were both there, who represent these towns. The representative, Stephen, I can't remember his last name, he's Green and Wales and sort of that way. Wood, thank you, that's what I thought. He did not attend, but was invited for sure. But we had a really good turnout. We were able to provide them information as they go into the session around the things that we're seeing collectively as a school district and in the region in terms of hiring and student needs and funding and those kinds of things. So super productive in terms of providing them information that is important for them to know as they move forward. We have a small situation in the same vein as things that might cost us more money. And Evan is here if people have more questions, but we have a contract. We have an athletic training program at the high school. We contract with St. Mary's. That's a very common thing. In my previous world, we contracted with another organization. But we contracted with St. Mary's to provide athletic training for a year-long contract, about $23,000, $25,000. I don't know if you noticed in the paper, but St. Mary's laid off 31 people, one of whom was our athletic trainer. They are closing a part of the program that included this athletic training process. From everything we know, and I think the article in the paper indicated that it was a financial issue. So that contract, it ends like the last day of December. It's a mid-year. They're not going to finish out the year. So I met with Eben and Ryan to sort of brainstorm. We're going to reach out to the trainer who currently works with us to see if she's willing to continue on a per diem rate for the rest, or per hour rate for the rest of the year. Don't know if that's going to work out. Districts that do not have trainers right now or don't have a contract sort of piece together something, trying to, per diem per hour, people who are around and will do that with a range of success. I think mostly not super successful. Lisbon covers it through their town EMT. Like, they don't have a training, they just have coverage at games. So the concussion protocol by itself is a significant portion of what this person does. When kids have concussions, there's, we've got to take it seriously. There's a very clear protocol that we have to follow that is part of that. So we will try to patch it together for the remainder of this year. If the current trainer agrees to continue to work, that person has been working about 25 hours a week for us, covering between serving kids after school and then covering games. It works out to about that. But at $50 an hour, that's significantly more than what we've been paying. So if she agreed to continue to working, we're talking an additional cost of $20,000 that we did not anticipate. The Finance Committee will have more of a conversation about this after break. So whether or not we have a temporary solution, and then what possible permanent solutions may need to be looked at in the budget process. So it's not an insignificant thing, and it is something that I feel very strongly, I know Evan and Ryan do too, that we need to resolve this. We can't not have this kind of coverage.
I was just thinking, we're not talking about benefits as well. Like, she
No,
would just
this-
be per diem.
Correct.
Meaning hourly,
For
no benefits.
the remainder of this year, yes. I think that's going to be a part of the scenario of whether or not she agrees to do it, right?
Yeah,
So,
of course.
yeah.
So you said that the contract ends at the end of this year.
Calendar
Is that
year.
because the actual contract ends then,
No.
or they're just reneging on the rest of it?
They're
Is there
canceling
any
it.
relief for us in this contract?
I suspect not, we can review it again, but, I mean, it's a contract for $23,000, so what it would cost us in legal fees to sort of look at that, but, I mean, we can look at the wording of the contract and see, but yeah, no, they're just stopping it.
We had a conversation about this. Aren't they giving us, we're not paying for the full year, though?
Correct.
Like, they're terminating the
Correct.
contract, and
Thank
we're not
you.
paying for the
Yes.
next half of the
Yes.
year.
I would hope not.
Yeah, no, no, no.
But,
Yeah.
Right.
the inconvenience of reneging on a contract in the middle of things.
Yep.
You would expect perhaps a kickback.
The invoice that came in for this part of the year was 11,500, I think.
Exactly half of it.
Yeah, so it's, yeah.
Some deals are too good to last.
And then we just have job descriptions in the consent agenda. The elementary job description for Dean of Students is new because that is a new position, but the other ones are revisions. The special ed leader is a stipended position, and the district-wide librarian, that's the elementary librarian, and that's just revised. So those two are revised. The elementary dean is new.
Any
That's it.
questions for Carrie? All right, then we'll move right into the consent agenda. It is a simple job description item tonight, review and adoption of the superintendent recommended job descriptions, 8.1 Dean of Students Elementary, the 8.1.2 11th area high school Dean of Students has been scratched and will return at a later date, but is not included in this tonight. 8.13 special education leader, and 8.14 district-wide elementary library media specialist. Again, these are items to be acted upon collectively unless the board, any member of the board wants a specific item to be removed. Is there anyone that would like to see one of these removed from the consent agenda? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda? That is unanimous. No. Is,
Sorry.
well, okay, yeah, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Mr. Shostak raised his hand first.
Oh, sorry.
Seconded by Mr. Ricker.
Put me wherever.
All those in favor? Very good. All right. There is no old business tonight, so we'll move right into new business. And the first item on our agenda is our presentation from our assistant superintendent.
Okay, so the presentation is going to show up on the Tanberg. And there was a choice earlier. Oh, there it is. Okay. So, tonight I am presenting on an overview of our Gifted and Talented program for our district. The objectives of this presentation are to provide an overview of the program, explain the identification process, and then tell you a little bit about what the programming entails. So what is gifted and talented programming? This definition is listed in our policy, IHBB. Each student in our school system is an individual with unique needs. Some of these students excel or have the potential to excel but beyond the regular school program and can benefit from programs for the gifted and talented. Who are our gifted and talented students? This is the state of Maine's definition for gifted and talented. Gifted and talented children are those students who excel or have potential to excel beyond their age peers in the regular school program to the extent that they need and can benefit from gifted and talented education programs. So how are students identified in our district? So our district has an expanded process. Students are allowed to refer themselves, and we do get self-referrals from students. Parents can make referrals, and staff can make referrals. And we have a gifted and talented identification committee, which is comprised of at least one administrator, a GT teacher, and at least one other teacher. Each time we have an identification committee come up, we do visual and performing arts 3 times per year, and we do academic 3 times per year. I put out a district-wide email inviting anyone that's interested to be part of the work. The committee takes place during the day. I know Mr. Shaw has been part of that committee, Mr. Rice at the high school, we have our gifted and talented teachers, we've had teachers from Leeds, Green, Turner Primary School, and Turner Elementary School be on the committee. And it can be fluid. We review the process each time. There's a core group that really enjoys this work, and so they've been on the committee most of the times we meet. Once identified, students and their families are notified. So a little bit more about the identification process. The selection is blind, meaning that the students' identifications are removed whenever possible. So if I as a parent made a referral and used my child's name throughout the application, that is all removed. The person, our gifted and talented teachers know who the referrals are, but they actually don't vote. They're present to provide additional information to the committee, but we don't know the students. We just see their skill set, we see their artwork, we hear them sing or perform musically. We don't know necessarily who they are. And then once the committee has completed their work, the students and families are notified. As part of the screening process, there's the referral form, which is available online. And then assessments that we use to gather data might include the NWEA, a COGAT, which is administered for academic referrals, which is the Cognitive Abilities Test, State of Maine assessments, which is the NWEA, now that they're all together, the science assessment. There's also a screener called SAGES, which is Screening Assessment for Gifted Elementary and Middle School Students, as well as the Torrance Creativity Test. Subjective measures may include interviews with a student. We just had an interview with a student who had self-referred for VPA, Visual and Performing Arts. I've gone in and done classroom observations. There have been portfolios that are submitted as well. So those are some of the pieces that go into the actual referral and identification process.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Our identification committee is comprised of how many people?
It varies. It's required that we have at least one GT teacher, at least one administrator, and at least one other classroom teacher. We exceed that.
Okay.
So it's typically 3 or 4. So this year we did the Visual and Performing Arts. We had the art teacher we had an art teacher at the high school. We had myself, the 2 gifted and talented teachers, 3 classroom teachers, and I'm trying to think if Mr. Rice was there that day. I think that he was, but I can't. So it varies, but I would say our smallest group has been 7, maybe.
And you said the GT teacher doesn't actually
They don't vote.
Right,
The
okay.
person that knows who the students are, they don't vote.
But it could be as little as 2 people if we were bare minimum voting, right?
Oh,
But I mean, we're never in that position. We always
yeah,
have
but we're
more.
never in that
Yeah,
position. And
yeah.
if it's not unanimous, sometimes a referral isn't as robust as we want it to be. So we put that referral on hold, and we determine what additional information that we need. And the referral process is open all year. It's a rolling referral process. So we actually meet a total of 6 times, 3 for academic and 3 for VPA. That's more than we've done before. It used to, I feel like when I first started, it was like once a year. So there's opportunities for students that maybe don't make it in the first time. They may either be missing elements of their referral process, or they may just not have enough information to provide us. Like in one of the ones that I can remember a few years ago, we had some good artwork, but it wasn't, it didn't meet really the criteria that we were looking for, so we just asked for some additional submissions.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So, we actually have services for pre-K to 12 in Gifted and Talented. They look a little different. Our gifted and talented teachers provide a consultation service for teachers in grades pre-K through 12. So every teacher in our district can consult with the gifted and talented teachers to get some support around providing instruction to students in their general ed regular classrooms. We have something that I love called Wonder Wednesday. It is for students in grades K to 2. Kara Getty, who is one of our gifted and talented teachers, provides STEAM programming. You might have seen the recent Facebook post where some kindergartners at Leeds they were working on engineering as they were trying to build bridges that would support little people. So, and teachers sign up for that, and I don't know, Kim, if you want to speak to that, because I know that it's been super popular, because Turner Primary School is pre-K to 2 school, so.
Yes, they love it, and they're so engaging, and I think the teachers, it's great for the teachers too to see those activities, and see their response, so that maybe we can incorporate some of that as well into the lessons. So, yeah, very popular.
Our students in grades 3 through 8 get small group or individual instruction depending on their area of identification, schedules, all of that. Goal setting and support services are what we provide for students in grades 9 through 12. At the high school, many of our students are able to have their needs met by either dual enrollment classes, advanced level classes, independent study, so their programming does look different than 3 through 8. And then all of our students in 3 through 12 participate in field trips, have guest artists, special programs. So those are the services that we currently provide for our students. And then you heard me mention Kara Getty. She's a full-time gifted and talented teacher. This year we've divided up a little differently. She is servicing our 4 elementary schools, and James Remington is a full-time gifted and talented teacher, and he serves our middle and high schools. And who are the students that receive services? Here are the numbers. So all of our K-2 students participate through their Wonder Wednesdays. All of our 3 through 6, we have 32 students, and those receive direct service in our grades 3 through 6. At the middle school, we have a large population of students, those 54 students that are getting direct service. And at the high school, we have 59 students who are identified. Their services vary. I do know James, the teacher, and I have been talking, and he does have a core group of 4 students that attend weekly. He also is doing some check-ins and support with other students. And that is the end of the presentation, so I don't know if anyone has any questions.
I am, I guess, maybe curious, and maybe this is for the future, but statistics a little bit, just about like how much interest is there to be in gifted and talented, and how many people can we actually get in, and is it because we have just so many GT teachers, or is there just the pool, it seems pretty well
So
fed.
we're limited to the number, which is actually by the state. It's 5% of the total population.
Okay,
However, our students that are in K through 2, within the past year, we've expanded services. It used to be for students in grades 4 through 12. We've now added grade 3. We could eventually add other grades should we choose to. Right now, we're servicing our K to 2 students through Wonder Wednesdays, because we're trying to balance their time out of the classroom with the time that's important for them to be in the classroom. So we're really limited. We can't identify 50% of our students as gifted and talented.
sure.
We actually, prior to you coming on the board, at one point, when I first started in this role, we had 1 teacher and 1 ed tech, and that was pretty limiting because the ed tech was 7 hours a day. And by having someone that's on a teacher contract, they are able to attend the staff meetings, they're able to attend professional development outside of the school day. And so us having 2 teachers has really been able to balance the instruction. I think it would always be great if we could provide students with more.
Well, I was just, like, with the numbers we have, how close are we to that 5%?
I knew you were gonna ask that, and I didn't figure out,
It's
it
okay,
out.
it's okay.
So how
It's
many
all right.
students do we have total?
1,999.
Okay, so what's 5% of that?
So 1,200.
Burned.
Yeah.
So what's 5% of that? Someone can tell me that, and then I'll.
2,000.
That's about,
Just
100?
multiply that by,
yeah,
you know,
it's
5.
about 100, right?
Yeah. it's
All right, so
2,000.
we're over then.
Don't tell anybody. Don't
That's
tell
why I
them at
didn't
the
figure it
state.
out, Joe.
Right, right.
Sometimes you just don't want to ask.
Well, no, I,
Well, even though the students in the high school, they're not receiving the direct service like they
Yeah.
are in the middle school. That's why this year, it actually came from the teachers. They requested to divide it up because even though our elementary focused person has 4 schools, just based on the distribution, it works out that she can do it. When we had the 2 teachers splitting and covering 6 schools, there's 2 different schedules, so someone would have to start basically at almost 7 and then be done by 2, and then the other one, but it got tricky with trying to provide services for students. This, I feel, was a good idea. I'm glad they had it, because I was a little resistant to it, but dealt with the change.
okay.
So, and I apologize if you said this, Teresa, but once a child qualifies, do they continue to qualify, or do they have to retest every year?
They don't retest,
Okay.
so, and parents, actually, I'm glad you asked that. Parents sign a permission slip for their students to receive the services. And if a student isn't participating or decides it's not for them, we do try to work with them, but it's not forced upon anybody. So some students might receive the identification and then just decide. It gets tricky trying to balance. I know in the middle school, there's a lot of interest, but I also know there's a lot of opportunity for students to do different things, and some students are feeling like, I've got to get my homework done, I'm going to do this, so, but the teachers always try to work with the core classroom teachers and the parents, but they don't lose their identification. I feel like at one time that might have been the way that it was, but.
Excuse me. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Teresa. Big item, 10.2, which is approval of strategic plan committee recommended revised strategic plan. Is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Seconded by Crystal?
I thought I did. That's
So-
why those pictures out there.
Discussion. I don't know, Carrie, if you want to give a briefing on this, or,
I can.
yeah.
I can project it, or I can just look at the document you guys have. Although I can't really find the Apple TV right now, so projecting it might be a little bit difficult.
It's
Well, we all have the document.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first page is the same. Nothing has changed about mission and vision. So I'll just highlight the bulk of the changes came in revising the objectives and then the strategies. So the objectives we also sort of took some feedback around, instead of numbering the goals to give some sense of hierarchy, which we really don't want to do, they've got a title. So I will say, as we put this together in a form that will be publishable, this won't be the final draft. I mean, it's the final draft of the content, but in terms of putting it into a publishable form, the titles may change a little bit as we try and make sure the wordsmithing. But we think we've got them. Teresa and I worked on them. So the first, they're still in the same order as the original one, and the goals did not change. So under climate and support, that really is focusing on the multi-tiered systems of support for students, training for staff, and then objective 3 sort of got consolidated from a couple things, but really shifted probably the most, and that's focusing on digital safety and digital citizenship for all students. So the previous strategic plan was really around integrating, making sure we had enough technology and integrating it, and we've kind of sort of left that because we sort of did that. But clearly, this is an area that we need to spend a lot of time on with kids and with families. The second goal is focused purely on instruction. There's one objective, and that's making sure that teachers have enough training to be able to use activities that engage students. And so in the previous plan, experiential learning was used, but there wasn't really a definition of it. There wasn't really so we fleshed that out a little bit more to give examples of the kinds of things that we want teachers to be trained in, that they're then going to be able to implement. That also gets connected with the curriculum work that Teresa talked about as we design curriculum and assessments that have kids doing things that may potentially have real world applications, that are providing them more, or asking them to do more activities and things that are real world, project based, interdisciplinary, those kinds of things. Curriculum, that one, it's not really much dramatically different than sort of what Teresa has been talking about this whole time. We've put some timelines in there. We're going to try really hard to meet them. It gives us a little anxiety, but the second one is a very specific objective around offering activities and co-curricular programs, and the strategy there is really very simple, and that would be the hope we can provide a stipend pool at schools for principals to be able to just sort of meet the need and the energy of the kids with a staff member who's interested, and sort of have it be a little bit more flexible versus like, this is the activity, this is the stipend, that's what you can offer. Just have them be undesignated. The next one is staff, and this is systems of support for staff. The objective is pretty broad, but we're looking at the big strategy in that one is working towards a weekly 1 hour early release. And this would be, I'll give an example of what it could look like if it's 1 hour early on a Wednesday every week. It would replace the half days that we have in there for professional development now. The one thing that I will say, since I wrote this, it says replace all half days in there, but we do have a couple half days that are comp days. They're not professional development days like the one next week. So I may take that out so people don't get confused. But it would replace the half days we have for professional development. We may need still a half day for conferences, for example, because we can't get those, to make sure we have night hours for parents. So that is something that the committee agreed was a good goal to work on. Learning outcomes. Fostering a culture of using data to inform decision making. This is a huge shift for us as a group, and I think the data that I provided everybody in August really has informed a lot of the work that we're doing. I think the other piece that's in every single objective or outcome goal is the data we want to look at and monitor on a regular, annual, if not earlier basis to see our progress. And so a lot of those data points are ones that we looked at in August, but some of them are going to be internal ones that schools are looking at. But building that culture of using it on a regular basis to make decisions and to see our progress. I had a great meeting with Jana today when we were doing this, looking at how they're using their data with the BAR protocol that they're implementing this year, and it's growing a lot of skill sets that people don't have, which are really exciting. The second one is focused on assessment, grading, and reporting. So those strategies and focuses from the last strategic plan are not gone in terms of report cards, making sure parents understand, making sure kids understand, making sure we have common guidance for staff across schools. All those things are still really important and really got disrupted by the pandemic. So there's a lot of work to do there that's still on the list. Communication got a pretty big overhaul. We want to work in particular around making sure that administration has appropriate training around communication, and in specific around crisis communication. It's an area that we just don't have a lot of stuff in place. We don't have a lot of strategies in place. We're sort of go with what we think makes sense, but all of us are anxious to sort of make sure that those parts of our emergency plans are updated. There's a lot of template letters there that are pretty outdated or old, haven't been reviewed in a long time. So that's looking at that. And then looking just at all of our methods of communicating and making sure that we're using the appropriate ones and they're using ones that families can access and find helpful and useful. And then the last one is around, not the last one by importance, but it has to do with safety in terms of facilities, buses. So really focusing on our embedding the SRO position into the district, monitoring that, verifying that it's been successful. How is that person using their time? What are we seeing for an outcome? Also looking at long-range facilities plans, comprehensive capital improvement plan. Right now we're looking at energy in buildings, but we really also need to look at, based on some of the conversations we even had today, around plant our fields, what the needs are for students, what our fields provide for students, and those kinds of things. So that is in there as well as, completing the wastewater treatment plant someday on a timeline that we're going to hold to. And then buses. I think we've made a lot of progress, but we don't want to lose track of it. I mean, it's been a short amount of time since we've had a dedicated transportation director. There's still lots to do, but we feel like we're moving in the right direction. I want to give a shout out to the elementary principals, in particular Kristen and Megan Mercier. And I don't know if you guys were at the last training or not.
Yeah, Kristen and I.
You and Kristen were, sorry. Kim and Kristen provided training to the bus drivers. They've got a monthly meeting set up now to work on that communication between the administrators and the bus drivers, in particular elementary, because that's where we're seeing the biggest issues. So it's a great start to sort of building a process which really hasn't existed. So very excited about that. So that is the overview.
Great. And I just want to say a quick thank you to the parents and the staff and administrators and everyone that participated in this, as well as you, Carrie, for kind of 3 well-organized workshops that got us to this concise document. So, thank you. Anyone have any comments or questions? Yes?
I'm curious about how some items have target dates and many do not. So
Yes.
could you talk about why there's that?
So in one draft that did go out, there were dates in it, but it was inconsistent. So I think I do actually, Evan, you were there too, and for those of you, there were some dates and there weren't others. I think the reason the dates really remained in the curriculum is because we've been so far behind, like from the pandemic and just everything, that it felt like we needed to give those dates some urgency. And so that's why they remained, whereas the others, the one thing that the committee did recommend is this be a 4-year, like through 2028. So our job as the administrative team will be to sort of say, all right, what does this look like over that period of time? But that's why just those dates. I think those are the only dates that stayed in there.
Climate and support.
What's that in support?
Climate and support has stayed.
What's in there?
Big bar.
Yes. And actually the fall 2026 and the SEL, those did come out in terms of concerns around math in particular, making sure that we've got the appropriate emphasis given what we know is a struggle for our kids. So there's a reason those dates stayed as well. And the fall 2026 for building assets, reducing risks is the 3-year implementation period. So that one has a definite date that it will be implemented. So that's why.
Anything else? Yes, Anthony.
I'd be curious if you could talk to us a little bit about what you hope to do with the, under data, under learning outcomes, you have the data evidence section there, and you have data review to include subgroups of socioeconomic and disadvantaged and special education. Could you talk a little bit about what you hope to accomplish
Yeah.
with that?
Which section are we in?
I'm sorry, this is page 7.
So I think it's it's essential to make sure that we're not losing track of groups of students that we can identify pretty easily, right? So there are students with disabilities, there are students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged. So when we look at the full population, that gives us one sense of how kids are progressing. But we have subgroups of kids who are going to progress differently. Their journey might look different. We need to make sure that we're not losing track of them. So if there's 50 kids out of 500, if we lose track of those 50 because the 500 look like they're doing okay, then we miss opportunities to make sure that the progress we're making is being targeted to all the groups of students. So I don't want those smaller populations to sort of be lost in that. Because oftentimes there are students with greater needs for a variety of reasons and a variety of needs, but that data can get lost when you're looking at the full population of a school. And in my own personal experience, sometimes that's where you can see your greatest successes. So the larger population, the movement may not be as dramatic, but when you look at the subgroups, you see dramatic movement based on whatever intervention you did. And so you don't want to lose the opportunity to celebrate either. So sometimes that is where you get your wins, because you realize that what you've done really impacted a group of students who need it the most, right? Who are the most vulnerable in our population.
Follow-up, Anthony? What are you thinking?
Yeah, well, I'm curious because there's an implication, I guess, there that I'm reading into it, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if you're economically disadvantaged, you're not going to be performing as well academically. Is that?
The data suggests that's the case. That's not just, I mean, that's research-based. That's, it's a factual thing. It's not necessarily specific to each student. Each student's story is going to be different, right? And what that means in terms of their economic disadvantage may not have anything to do with how they're performing. But as a group, they are a group that we need to pay particular attention to because they may be vulnerable for a variety of reasons. So it's there because I want to make sure we don't lose track of it. We have to make sure that we're looking at that.
Anyone else? So you mentioned having a couple minor revisions, like with the half-days, perhaps some graphical, reorganization. I'm wondering if we should amend the motion to give you kind of the freedom to do some of those things, just to make sure it's not this exact document. So I'm wondering if I guess I'll propose an amendment to empower the superintendent to provide clarifying language adjustments and to reorganize the presentation of the document before it's published finally. Is there a second to that? Okay. Any discussion on that amendment? So all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, that is unanimous. So back to discussion.
Do you get the language?
Overall.
Okay.
Sorry, Joe.
I could try to restate it if you'd like.
You are amending to give the superintendent the power to reorganize the presentation of the document with minor wording changes.
Yeah, clarifying wording changes.
Clarifying.
And reorganize it graphically.
Graphically.
Yeah, so
Formatting.
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 Yeah,
Aesthetics.
aesthetics, sure.
Aesthetics.
I don't know.
I mean, I'll get it.
No, I'm sorry. I mean, go ahead, Anthony.
So I have another question
Yeah.
about page 7.
Yeah.
Page 7, okay.
Under objective 2, you have strategies, you have 3 strategies. One of them is create faculty grading guides. The next is establish a system to support consistent and calibrated grading practices. How are those different?
A faculty grading guide is guidance for staff members in their process of grading, how they are grading and how they are reporting on that grading, so that as an administrator you have that guideline and it's consistent across all teachers and all grades and all schools. So, and obviously what it looks like at the elementary level and the middle school level and the high school level will be different, but you need something that is the set of rules, because grading is a subjective activity, and oftentimes, because the teacher has created the assignment, has created the rubric, and is grading with their own perspective. So it provides guidance for the staff members to make sure they're doing that as similarly to their colleagues as possible, and making sure that kids are not sort of being unfairly graded because one teacher decides they're going to count, homework for extra points versus another. There's all kinds of variations. And then the second one, the system's consistent and calibrated, is if Joe and I are both teaching 5th grade science and we gave an assignment, that process of us calibrating how we're going to grade that and what we consider to be proficient or not proficient, that process is calibrating. So that's the professional development that happens between teachers giving common assessments.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Teresa?
Can I just check the wording of the motion? Would
Go-
you be amenable to that?
Go right ahead, go right
Okay.
ahead, yeah.
A motion was made by Joe McLean, seconded by Jessica Nichols, to amend the motion to give the superintendent the authority to make wording changes and reorganize the formatting to include graphics. And include graphics?
Clarifying change.
Yeah,
Clarifying wording.
clarifying.
Okay, to make clarifying word changes? Okay. I
How
appreciate
about
the
Or
group.
clarifying
minor,
language.
minor edits for clarification
Much better.
purposes?
Yeah, yeah.
Minor edits for clarification purposes.
That sounds
good.
good. Yeah.
It was spinning in my head, and
You
I
okay
was
with
trying
that,
to get it to
Joe?
come out.
Yes, that sounds
Okay,
good.
good, we're gonna,
Like, if you and I come up with a better word than outcomes, we have permission to use it, but it's gonna mean the same thing. I'm counting on you.
Any?
thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Any other thoughts around the strategic plan? Okay. Seeing no additional discussion points, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor? It is unanimous.
God, I can't believe it. Is it December, Joe? Is it done?
You did it. You did it. All right. Next item, 10.3 is approval of Plant Transportation Building Committee recommended SRF clean water application. Is there a motion on the floor for that?
So moved.
Mr. Ricker, seconded by Ms. Barris. Discussion. And I don't know if someone from PTV would like to
Well, I
just
think-
highlight it.
It would be poorly done by myself. I might direct that direction to the exact reason for this.
All right.
So this specific motion is needed. First, we have to show it in the board minutes in order to process the application. But also, it is a requirement to do a fiscal sustainability plan whenever there is any state revolving fund loan. And, for a new facility. Our new facility being the wastewater treatment plant, which is quite a large project. We have to have this fiscal sustainability plan done within 6 months of the completion of this. We get 50% coverage from the DEP, so the estimated cost will be $20,000 in addition to the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. Wright Pierce will do this fiscal sustainability plan for us, and the DEP will issue us $10,000 towards the $20,000 cost. They have that waiting for us, but we have to submit the application to them by tomorrow. So, we're bringing this application to the board for approval and to put it in the minutes so that I can finalize and send it over to them.
Does anyone have any questions about this? Any thoughts? Okay, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, Gabby. We are moving to our adjusted agenda item, which is 10.10, moving up, which is consideration and approval of Finance Committee recommended September operating and expenditure reports. Is there a motion on the floor for that? Crystal, second. file. Any discussion around this? I almost wish we would have put this in the consent agenda.
That was my fault.
Ooh.
But we didn't, but it's here. Is there anything the finance committee would like to say? No? All right. Any key points you want to highlight? No? All right.
Cruising along.
Cruising along. So all those in favor? It is unanimous. All right. Now, we enter into our first executive session, the request for an executive session to discuss a personnel matter pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056A. Is there a motion for that? Oh, everyone made a motion there.
We're
We're
all
going to go
excited.
with
Wow.
Bree,
Look at it.
with a second by Crystal. All those in favor? It is unanimous at 8:43.
Where are we going?
Sorry, yeah,
7:43.
7:43.
God almighty.
Never is.
I know.
I was just helping my third grader.